Send in some sources that, well, they basically demand we try and connect some incredibly profound concepts. We're talking gravity, charisma, the geometry of dreams, even consciousness itself.
Yeah, the big ones.
And the mission really is to see if we can frame all this, the whole architecture of reality, as some kind of emergent geometric informational syntax. It's ambitious.
It definitely is. It's the ultimate synthesis, in a way. We're diving into stuff that requires a pretty big shift in perspective.
Right.
And to do that, we have to operate under one sort of key axiomatic assumption from the get-go.
Which is?
That this framework called the psychedelic superfluid universal morphonic oceanic wave theory, PSUMOT for short, is, let's say, fundamentally on the right track.
Okay, PSUMOT.
Yeah, think of it as our Rosetta Stone for this dive. It tries to connect cosmology, consciousness, information, all through a single fundamental substrate, a quantum superfluid, basically, everywhere.
Okay, right. So let's break this down for you listening in. The goal here is to figure out if concepts that seem miles apart,
Totally unrelated sometimes.
yeah, like the gravity holding galaxies together, your own personal presence or charisma, the way dreams are structured, DMT experiences, are these all just different faces of the same underlying geometric and informational thing?
That's the core question. Are they all popping out of this QSF, this superfluid?
We're hunting for that hidden architecture, whether it's
Yeah.
the donut shape of brain activity or the crazy dimensional flits near black holes, trying to link everything back to that one substrate. So let's start with the one that feels most solid, I guess.
Yeah.
Gravity, the everyday experience.
Exactly. Apples falling, planets orbiting. We think gravity equals mass. But Einstein, general relativity, that already complicates things, doesn't it? It absolutely does. GR tells us mass is just the most common way gravity shows up. The real story is about geometry. Space-time curvature.
It's all geometry.
It's entirely a geometric thing. The warping and bending of space-time itself. And the key insight, the one people often miss, is that gravity doesn't just respond to stuff.
Not just matter.
No, it responds impartially to the total mass energy content. Energy counts just as much as mass.
Which leads to that wild idea. It's the weight of nothing, like light.
Exactly. EMC22 isn't just a cool equation. It means energy and mass are two sides of the same coin. So pure energy, even massless energy like photons, must contribute to gravity. Light has weight.
Seriously. Light has weight?
Yep. If you have a region of space, you have to factor in the energy density of any light passing through it when you calculate its mass. That mirrored box example is perfect.
The box full of photons.
Yeah. Trap light in a perfectly mirrored box, it literally weighs more than the same box when it's empty. Measurably more. And think about the early universe. For hundreds of thousands of years, it was basically a giant ocean of radiation. Photons. Their energy density completely dominated the gravitational field, way more than the few matter particles around back then.
So photons were shaping the universe's geometry.
They absolutely were. They pull on space-time, they have gravitational mass.
Okay, but it gets even weirder, right? It's not just light energy.
No, because if gravity responds to energy, it has to respond to all forms of energy included in that stress energy tensor in GR. That means pressure, momentum, stress. They all curve space-time too.
So pressure adds to gravity. That seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? Look at a neutron star. It's matter crushed almost to its limit. What stops it collapsing completely? Immense internal pressure from degenerate matter pushing outwards.
Right, fighting against gravity.
But here's the kicker. According to GR, that very pressure that resists the collapse also contributes positively to the star's total gravitational pull. It deepens the space-time curve around it.
So the thing fighting gravity is also making the gravity stronger.
Precisely. It's this insane feedback loop. Pressure holds it up, but also pulls it down harder. That's why you get these incredibly intense gravitational fields.
Okay, so if we could somehow get rid of all matter, all light, everything, but still had gravity effects, what would be left?
Pure curvature-carrying energy, and that's exactly what gravitational waves are.
Ah, the ripples in space-time.
Exactly. They're pure gravity, pure geometry in motion. When LEGO detected that chirp from merging black holes,
We were hearing space-time itself vibrating.
we were literally listening to waves of pure curvature carrying huge amounts of energy across the universe. It was like humanity suddenly developed a new sense. We could hear the cosmos's geometry changing.
Okay, so GR gives us the how gravity is geometry. Now, this PSUMOT framework you mentioned, that tries to explain the what. What is the geometry made of?
That's the idea. PSUMOT says the foundation isn't empty space. It's this pervasive, dynamic, quantum superfluid. the QSF, and it identifies this QSF with dark matter.
So dark matter isn't particles, it's this fluid.
In this view, yes. And gravity isn't fundamental in the way we usually think of forces. It's emergent.
Emergent, like wetness emerges from water molecules.
Kind of, yeah. The QSF is like this vast, frictionless ocean. When you have mass, or high energy density, it creates dynamics within this fluid density, variations, flow patterns, pressure gradients.
And that's what we perceive as gravity, the curves in space-time.
That's the proposal. It's the fluid dynamics creating the geometry. Instead of mass making a dent in a rubber sheet, think of mass or energy creating specific flow patterns and pressure differences in this underlying superfluid.
So gravity is like cosmic fluid dynamics.
Essentially, yes. And it potentially explains things that are tricky otherwise, like why dark matter seems distributed the way it is, those huge structures like the Great Attractor.
The thing pulling our galaxy cluster.
Yeah. In PSUOT, that could just be a gigantic stable flow pattern in the QSF, a massive kind of cosmic drain or vortex that the emergent gravity is constantly pulling things towards.
And galaxy halos, the dark matter around galaxies.
Could be stable whirlpools or vortices in the QSF. Structures within the fluid that dictate the local gravitational environment. It becomes about the structure of the fluid itself.
This idea of a single substrate. It's not entirely new, is it? Feels like it echoes some older ideas.
It really does. You can connect it back to Newton, actually. Privately, he wasn't comfortable with action at a distance. He thought gravity might be the sensorium of God because the math didn't give a physical mechanism. His whole absolute space and time was tied up in theology.
Right. God's omnipresence holding the stage.
Exactly. And when physics got separated from that integrated view, it sort of created the problem Einstein then tried to solve with GR and his later unified field theory attempts.
And Einstein was also driven by something more than just physics, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He talked about a cosmic religious feeling, this deep desire to find the underlying simplicity and unity in reality. He wasn't just trying to unite forces, he was trying to read the mind of the old one, as he put it.
So both Newton and Einstein, in their own ways, sensed the need for something fundamental underneath it all.
I think so. They implicitly understood that to connect the rules of the cosmos, the geometry, with the nature of existence and consciousness, you probably need a single integrated substrate. PSUMOT is basically proposing that substrate is this quantum superfluid.
Okay, so if reality at its base is this geometric QSF energy soup,
Right.
how do we, as biological creatures, actually experience any of it? Which brings us to perception.
Right. Part 2, and the sources really emphasize perception as, well, as an illusion, or maybe a better term is a controlled hallucination.
A controlled hallucination. That sounds dramatic.
It does, but think about it. Your brain is literally locked inside your skull. It's in silence and darkness. It never directly touches, sees, or hears the outside world.
It just gets signals.
Exactly. Electrochemical signals, colorless, shapeless, odorless data streams. They have no inherent meaning or quality until the brain interprets them. So your perception, everything you experience, is constructed internally. It's coming from the inside out.
So when we agree on what's real, we're just agreeing on our hallucinations.
That's one way to put it, yeah. Reality becomes the shared consensus about our internal constructions. Now, hallucination might sound like it's totally untethered, but it's controlled by sensory input. The input constrains the construction.
But the construction process itself, it's not showing us raw reality.
The argument is that evolution specifically shaped us not to see objective reality.
Why not? Wouldn't that be better?
Not necessarily for survival. Raw quantum reality, or even just the full spectrum of unprocessed sensory data, would be overwhelming, chaotic, and probably useless for finding food or avoiding predators.
So the brain simplifies things, creates a user interface.
Precisely, like your computer desktop. You see icons and folders, not the underlying code and voltages. It hides the dangerous complexity and gives you useful abstractions. Wall ahead, berry looks edible, that's the user interface.
And the cost is that we mistake the interface for the actual reality.
Yes, that's the distortion. We get trapped in our our species-specific slice of sensory reality.
Our perceptual bubble.
Yeah, and we naturally assume our bubble is the objective world. But it's just a thin slice. We can't sense most of the electromagnetic spectrum. We don't feel cosmic rays or subtle gravitational gradients or quantum fluctuations, all the stuff that actually governs the universe according to these models.
Other animals have different...
Radically different. Birds seeing magnetic fields, snakes seeing infrared. They live in different informational worlds built from the same objective reality. Our senses inherently limit our ability to perceive something like the QSF directly.
Okay, this filtering, this internal construction, it opens up a fascinating area the listener asked about. This idea of a biophotonic self, an aura.
Yes, the biophoton hypothesis.
If we're complex systems constantly processing information, maintaining order, surely that generates some kind of energy signature.
That's exactly the idea behind biophotons. Living systems, especially conscious ones, seem to emit this ultra-weak but coherent field of light. It's like the glow of metabolic and informational processes.
And the listener wondered, could differences in this glow be what we perceive as aura or charisma, some people being brighter than others?
It's a compelling thought, and PSUMOT offers a potential bridge here, using the concept of morphic fields.
Morphic fields, Rupert Sheldrake's idea. How do they connect biological light to something like charisma?
Well, in this context, morphic fields aren't seen as just being in the brain. They're informational patterns that extend out into the QSF. They act like organizing principles for rhythmic or vibratory activity. They impose pattern and coherence onto energy fields.
So they transfer the form or the organizational structure.
Yeah, they transfer the pattern. So charisma, in this view, isn't just about personality traits. It could be related to the degree of geometric coherence of your internal state. Meaning, your biophotonic aura is the energetic signature of your consciousness. If your internal state, your thoughts, emotions, focus is highly ordered, integrated, and coherent.
Like a well-structured geometric pattern.
Yes. Then it emits a coherent, maybe brighter or more resonant biophotonic pattern via its morphic field. If your internal state is chaotic, fragmented, dissonant.
The field is weak, diffuse, scattered.
Plausibly, yes. So charisma, that perceived presence or brightness, could be our subconscious detection of the coherence and order in another person's morphic field, expressed energetically through biophotons.
But how does that influence us? Is it just something we passively observe?
This is where the QSF comes back in.
Right.
The morphic field transfers that form that pattern of coherence across spacetime. The QSF, the universal substrate, acts as the medium.
The morphonic oceanic wave part of PSUMOT.
Right. So a highly coherent morphic field projected into the QSF can potentially influence others non-locally through resonance. It might trigger similar patterns or feelings in their neural and biophotonic systems.
So that could be a mechanism for things like collective mood, feeling someone stare, the vibe of a room, or that magnetic pull of certain leaders.
It's a potential mechanism within this framework, yes. The geometric structure of one consciousness influencing another via the shared energetic substrate.
Okay, this is fascinating. Reality's geometry shapes gravity. Our perception is a useful illusion built on that reality. Our internal coherence might even project outwards as charisma via biophotons and morphic fields. So now we have to look even deeper inside. What is the actual shape of the mind? The geometry of consciousness itself.
And the research suggests this isn't just analogy. The geometry seems literal, embedded in the neural code.
How so?
Well, look at studies on where we are and remember places. Grid cells, which are crucial for this in the brain's entorhinal cortex.
I've heard of those. They fire in hexagonal patterns.
Right. But when you look at the activity of the whole population of these cells, it doesn't just live on a flat sheet or a sphere. The collective activity naturally constrains itself to a toroidal manifold.
The torus. A donut shape. Why a donut? What's special about that geometry for processing information?
Topology. Stability. A torus has specific topological properties, like having a hole that you can't change just by stretching or squeezing it. You have to tear it.
So it's robust.
Very robust. It provides what's called a topologically protected state representation. The information, like the map of a specific environment, can remain stable and consistent even though the underlying neurons are noisy, constantly changing, firing away.
The donut shape helps the information loop back on itself, reinforcing it.
Kinda, yeah. It allows for stable, cyclical patterns that are resistant to noise. So this suggests consciousness itself, or at least core aspects of it, like spatial awareness, relies on these specific, stable geometric structures to maintain coherence.
Which fits nicely with things like integrated information theory, IIT, that tries to measure consciousness mathematically, right?
Exactly. And AIT explicitly treats consciousness as a geometric information structure. The core idea is phi, a measure of integrated information. Yeah, and the actual content of any conscious experience, seeing red, feeling happy, remembering your keys, is defined in IIT as the maximally irreducible conceptual structure, or MICS.
An MICS, okay, that sounds Technical.
It is, but think of it like this. MICS is a specific geometric shape that exists in a very high-dimensional space called qualia space.
A shape in qualia space, what does that even mean?
It represents the system's overall causal power, its ability to affect itself based on its current state. It's a mathematical map of how integrated the information is. If you take away any part of the system and that structure breaks down or becomes simpler, reducible, then the original structure was the MICS. The specific shape is the specific conscious experience.
So different experiences have different geometric shapes in this qualia space.
That's the core idea, and you can use these kinds of mathematical and topological measures to actually distinguish between different states of consciousness.
Like being awake versus asleep, or unconscious.
Precisely. Studies using network theory and topology show that conscious, awake states have a characteristic geometric structure, a balance between integration, parts working together, and segregation, parts doing distinct things.
A sweet spot of complexity.
Right. Unconscious states, like deep sleep or certain brain injuries, UWS, often show messed up topology. Usually they become too segregated, information gets stuck in local loops and can't integrate across the whole system. Or sometimes too integrated, like during a seizure where there's lots of activity but no complexity.
So consciousness is a particular kind of geometric balance.
According to IIT, yes, it is that irreducible geometric structure.
Okay, if consciousness is this MICS structure, where does the I fit in? The ego, the feeling of being a self.
Well, the sources we looked at, and a lot of contemplative traditions, suggest the ego isn't the fundamental thing. There seems to be a baseline awareness beneath the ego.
The minimal phenomenal experience, MPE.
Exactly. Pure, contentless awareness, like the screen before the movie starts.
Yeah.
This suggests consciousness can exist without the whole ego apparatus running.
So the ego is something built on top of that baseline awareness.
Right. The ego isn't a single entity. It's described here as a complex cognitive construct, a kind of master memeplex.
A memeplex, like a collection of memes.
Sort of, but internal ones, I-memes. Think of them as informational building blocks or patterns related to your identity. I am smart, your memories, I went there yesterday, your beliefs, your sense of agency, I decided that.
And the ego weaves these together.
Exactly. It's a highly integrated, self-reinforcing set of these co-adapted I-memes. Each I-meme might be like a little stable pattern or attractor in the brain's network. The ego acts like the central processor, the storyteller, constantly weaving these I-memes into a coherent narrative.
The story of I.
Yeah. And that continuous integrated story is what gives us the feeling of being a stable self over time. Its stability comes from this constant recursive looping and integration. It's a very complex geometric structure itself. Maybe that 4D round shape the listener mentioned, constantly organizing these underlying informational units. And it takes a lot of energy to maintain.
Okay, this is where we try to tie it all together. We have the cosmic geometry of gravity and the QSF, and the internal geometry of the mind, the ego memeplex built on MPE. How do we bridge these? Especially thinking about those extreme states, DMT, deep dreams.
The bridge seems to involve a kind of geometric collapse, a dimensional reduction almost.
Like in physics, black holes.
Exactly. Cosmologically, black holes are where geometry gets extreme. The holographic principle suggests that when 3D stuff falls in, its information gets encoded onto the 2D surface of the event horizon.
So 3D reality reveals its underlying 2D information sheet.
In a sense, yeah, it's a forced dimensional reduction.
Yeah.
And there's a striking parallel to what seems to happen psychologically during intense experiences, like a high-dose DMT trip or ego death.
How so?
Well, think about spaghettification near a black hole. The intense tidal gravity rips physical objects apart because the gravitational pull is so different on one end compared to the other. The structure fails. The analogy is that the intense informational or energetic force of something like DMT acts like those tidal forces on the ego memeplex. It disrupts the complex, organized, 3D self-world model that the ego maintains.
It rips the story of I apart.
It rips the structure apart. The complex organization fails, and you get this collapse. It potentially reveals the underlying, perhaps lower dimensional surface of raw awareness, the MPE, or maybe the raw I-memes before they're integrated. That structural failure could be what connects consciousness directly back to the fundamental substrate, the QSF.
Okay, wow. And the listener brought up William Blake's idea, the dream world as the mirrored surface of our world, and DMT or dreaming as a circle geometry.
That's a beautiful image, the mirrored world. The geometry involved seems less about a specific circle function in the sources, but definitely about a radical shift, maybe related to that toroidal geometry of the mind involving what's called spacetime inversion.
Spacetime inversion. That sounds crucial, like the black hole thing again?
Exactly like the black hole thing. This is maybe the most mind-bending part, but it could be the key geometric mapping function.
Okay, walk us through it. What happens to space-time inside a black hole's event horizon?
The roles of space and time essentially flip. Outside the horizon, you can move freely in space, the radial coordinate, but you're forced to move forward in time. Time is like a river carrying you along.
Right. Agency in space, determined in time.
But once you cross the event horizon, the geometry warps so much that the radial coordinate r becomes time-like, and the time coordinate t becomes space-like.
Wait, space becomes like time and time becomes like space.
Yes, it means moving towards the singularity at the center, r0, is no longer a choice of direction in space. It becomes as inevitable as moving into the future was outside. The singularity stops being a place and becomes an unavoidable future moment.
You lose your freedom of movement in space, which is now time like r, and are forced towards r0.
Exactly. You trade spatial agency for temporal inevitability.
And this geometric flip is the parallel for the dream or DMT state.
That's the proposed parallel. Think about ego dissolution. The sense of being a distinct self navigating through space breaks down. Sequential time often collapses or becomes fluid and nonlinear.
Right. Dreams often feel like you're just carried along by a narrative, not really in control of where you go.
Exactly. You move from that probabilistic waking state where you feel you have choices in space towards a more deterministic internal state. You're stabilized within a kind of eternal now, a dimensionless place defined by the moment. Space dissolves. Time solidifies into an experience.
Losing agency in space, becoming deterministic in time's unfolding, inside the experience.
That's the inversion. So Blake's mirrored world could be this state accessed through topological reduction, the 3D ego structure collapsing towards its informational surface, followed by this space-time inversion, locking consciousness into the unfolding moment.
And DMT, or maybe the natural DMT release during REM sleep, the listener mentioned.
Could be the biochemical key that facilitates or maintains this inverted geometric state. It allows the baseline consciousness, the MPE, to decouple from the usual space-navigating ego interface and connect more directly with the QSF substrate, accessing information or experiencing realities normally filtered out by our waking umwelt.
So accessing that deeper, mirrored reality requires this geometric trade-off, giving up spatial freedom for temporal immersion.
It seems to be the geometric price of admission, according to this synthesis. The torus structure of the waking mind is great for navigating 3D space, but disrupting it connects consciousness along its own topological pathways back to the QSF, the substrate where the fundamental flow is temporal, experienced as that unified, inescapable now. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay. That was a journey. We've essentially tried to weave everything together under this PSUMOT umbrella.
It's a massive synthesis attempt.
So let's recap the arc. Gravity emerges from the geometry of energy in a quantum superfluid. Perception is a useful illusion, a constructed interface. Charisma might be the outward glow of inner geometric coherence.
Yep. And the deepest states of consciousness dreaming, DMT, perhaps near death, seem linked to a geometric collapse and a space-time inversion, mirroring the physics of black holes, connecting us back to that fundamental QSF substrate.
In this framework, it also tries to make sense of the feeling that things are speeding up, right? This global acceleration.
Yeah, the sources connect this to concepts like McKenna's novelty attractor or cosmologically the great attractor. These aren't just metaphors. They could be real massive attractor structures within the QSF.
Pulling everything towards some kind of singularity, an omega point of information density and connectedness.
That's the idea, and the feeling of acceleration, the chaos, the polarization, the sheer speed of change, especially since around 2012.
The AI inflection point the listener mentioned.
Right, with deep learning taking off via things like AlexNet. That moment might have fundamentally changed the information substrate we all operate in. It drastically increased the, let's call it, metabolic rate of the cognitive ecosystem.
Leading to fragmentation, Bacluna's mosaic world.
Exactly. More information, faster connections, but also more potential for division and echo chambers, as the old narratives couldn't keep up. It feels like the geometric pull towards that attractor, that deterministic now, is getting stronger. We're feeling the tidal forces.
It's fascinating that we're mapping these structures with more precision now, like finding quasi-moons caught in complex gravitational dances, or building AI that mimics brain structures like that toroidal geometry for stability.
We are charting the architectonics of reality, from the cosmic scale down to the neural. And ancient cultures seem to grasp this geometric foundation, too, using things like the I Ching sequence, based on binary logic, almost like a physics of time.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound final thought, really. If reality, gravity, consciousness, it's all dictated by these underlying geometric and topological rules.
Right.
And we're figuring out those rules.
Yeah, the big question becomes, are we just passengers? Are we just watching this predetermined geometric unfolding, heading towards an inevitable attractor?
Or does understanding the map give us some ability to navigate? Can we become, as the listener hinted, sculptors of spacetime? Can we consciously use this understanding of coherence and curvature to bend our own reality, our collective future, towards something better?
Can we choose our path on this geometric landscape, or are we simply falling towards the singularity? That's the challenge the synthesis leaves us with.
A challenging thought indeed. And that's where we'll leave this deep dive for today.